I dedicate this song to my mother. You know, the praise, it all goes to God, because she couldn't have been the mother that she was if the Holy Spirit hadn't lived in her life, had she not been born again as a little child. I think she was about 8 years old. But I dedicate this to her, but I want to make sure that God is the one to get all the glory. The narration part of this song is the actual to account of her.
She never had much of this world's riches, but peace was there in our country home. And when there was an extra food on Mama's table, it seemed that Mama wasn't so hungry after all. She whipped us whenever it was needed, but her kiss could melt all the hurt away. And when I was so sick, she held me close all the night to make sure that I was better the next day. Mama's heart was bigger than the ocean, and her spirit as gentle as a breeze. She spoke with love and compassion, and she called my name often on her knees. Her life was my guidebook to heaven. I know Mama is waiting there for me. I will never forget the sweetest lady. Mama's heart is what I want my heart to be. My mom was the greatest person I've ever known. Truly. She was great because she was godly. I never knew of her doing anything wrong. 1 Peter 3:4 says, a meek and a quiet spirit is of great price in the sight of the Lord. That was my mom. She was smart, yet humble, kind, forgiving, and without deceit. Being an orphan at age 5, Mama was mistreated and knew what it was to have a wounded spirit. But she never tried to get back at those who were unkind. She'd forgive them, even without an apology. The best thing that ever happened to Mama was getting saved. They said she shouted all over, and I've heard her say the people's faces just seemed to shine. About all Mama ever knew, though, was hard work. Never had a vacation, seldom went out except church. But you'd hear her singing some old hymn of the faith as she did her chores. Her #1 priority in life was seeing her children saved. She knew salvation is the most valuable gift anyone can possess. I thank God for my little mama and for a place called heaven that will make up for all the sorrow and injustice of this old world. God made something special when He made mamas. He used a virgin girl was his mama, who stood by till his breath was gone. Mama's heart was bigger than the ocean, and her spirit as gentle as a breeze. She spoke with love and compassion, and she called my name often on her knees. Her life was my guidebook to heaven, and I know Mama is waiting there for me. I will never forget the sweetest lady. Mama's heart is what I want my heart to be. I will never forget the sweetest lady. Mama's heart is what I want my heart to be.
Amen. Yes. One other thing I want to mention before I start the message is, don't forget, June the 2nd, Kentucky Mountain Bible College will have a ladies' trio here, and we will have a dinner afterwards. Come, all you that are here are invited, and all that you are here are encouraged to invite others to come and be a part of that service. From this pulpit I've preached, this will make my 15th Mother's Day sermon. So you sit around and you get thinking about it. What have I not preached on Mother's Day when it is concerning that? I do remember one specific one. Can you believe this, that I can remember all the way back to 2008? But I can tell you what I preached on 2008. I'll try to do this without crying. Too late. Preached on Proverbs 31. Somebody tell me what Proverbs 31 starts out with? Who can find a virtuous woman? Now, how can I remember that I did that? My mama went to see the Lord, to be with the Lord the very next day. Was called after, and this is something that I will try to lighten it up just a little bit, but after I preached that sermon, my intentions were to go back because I had had a phone call saying that Mama wasn't doing well at all. So my intentions were, and which it did, I preached the sermon here, I left here, and then I went straight on back to Mom's. But before I had gotten there, my sister had come, and as she walked in, and this is the reason that the family always says that I was the favorite. And I was. Because I was a sickly little baby, and Mama didn't think I was going to make it, and there's all kinds of stories with that. But when it came to her little Ronnie, I was in pretty good shape. So my sister come, and she gave her all these things, and she put them out there and laid them out for her to see, all of the Mother's Day gifts, got her an outfit, and so on and so forth. She said, "Well, what do you think?" Mom looked up at her and said, Have you heard from Ronnie yet? I'm saying that to lighten up just a little bit of what that I had mentioned. Most all of the women in the Bible that we speak of are the mothers that I've preached on. I remember preaching on Miriam, Moses' mother. I have preached on Mary, Jesus' mother. I preached on all of those different things. So what in the world could I do to come up with something just a little bit refreshing maybe? Now, I know that we have enough, and I do preach sometimes from the same scriptures because we have a lot of new people and all of that. But not only did the Bible and has the Bible spoken of godly mothers, He also has spoken of, and the Bible has given us instructions for godly women. So, for it not only to just be Mother's Day, and we're so thankful that, we want to celebrate women today because even though it's hard to think about this, because we've always had them around, can you really think how life would be without the women around us? You men? Absolutely. Biblically, traditionally, and as the Bible says, what God had made the woman to be was a helpmate for the man. I'm not the one that wrote that. I'm not the one that established that. God in heaven Himself is what established that. But I'm going to tell you something. I listened to a gentleman yesterday as he was interviewing for ordination, as he was going through all of that he just had received a call to be an assistant pastor at the church where he was. And one of the things that he said about it, that I am very happy being the second person. Because I can be a support. I can be there and help, even though I don't know that I can do that. But the support that I can receive from that is greater than anything that I can ever imagine. And he said, I am happy to do that. So if I refer to the ladies today as the second person, I'm not doing that in any kind of derogatory method whatsoever, because I'm going to tell you something. Support, most of the time, is better than the person out in front. Y'all with me? Before I left this morning, as you can see, that the pew is empty here this morning. Beverly's not feeling well at all today. But as I started walking out the door, she said, wait a minute. She said, don't you think we need to pray? Amen. You know what she's doing right now? She's listening to the gospel station on the TV and praying. Guaranteed. Support is one of the greatest things that we can ever establish today. And as I go into this, what I have called a pointless message, that I don't have my usual 3 points in a poem today, but I want to just talk to you about what it truly means in that support. What can you do to support the person? And I am here to tell you the props and the supports and all the things. And if you'll remember last week, I talked about how Moses held up his hands, but he needed Aaron to be on one side and her on the other side to hold up so that the battle can be there. I am here to tell you this morning that ladies have as great a role as men do in any point, at any part of the Christian walk. I got a few quiet amens, but it's so true. And may I say that I would have not wanted to have ever tried to pastor a church without my wife being right with God. I've known a few people, and I've heard them talk about how that was a very, very difficult thing to do because the support wasn't there. when the support is there, just like getting, you may think it's not a big deal, but it is. It's always been a big deal for me to try to come up with some kind of present to give to the ladies, because that's not something I'm good at. But you know what? They're here. And all I did was be the chauffeur and help. But all those things that a lot of people don't understand. And then, of course, we know the saying, and I'm not for sure who had come up with it, but behind every successful man was a good woman. So I want to celebrate that. And one of the greatest places to celebrate that, we find that the book of Titus was written by Paul to Titus, because Titus was a young preacher and he was trying to give young preacher instructions. So as I do this, and if I refer to my wife quite a bit today, please, I apologize ahead of time, but I know that better than I know anything else. So that's probably where I will go. And one of the things that we find there in Titus, that truly it gives a perfect formula for women who love Jesus or love the Lord. And as he talks about that, he tells them qualities, practices, and purposes to be a fine lady. And as we go through that, may I say that even though we have a lot of fine ladies out there that may not profess to be a Christian, the only way that you can truly be a fine lady is that you love Jesus first and everybody else second.
Amen.
Okay? Because no matter what we think, no matter how it comes out, no matter anything, part of anything that we do, that if Jesus is not foremost in our lives and the center of our lives, then we are the center of our lives. And if we are the center of our lives, guess who we think about first? And that's self. But godly women, and this is what that he brought to us in Titus, beginning in chapter 3, as he was talking about this. This is what it is. The aged women likewise, that they be in behavior as becometh holiness, not false accusers, not giver to much wine, and teachers of good things. Then it goes on, that they may teach younger women to be sober, to love their husbands, to love their children, to be discreet, chaste, keepers at home, good, obedient to their own husbands, and the word of God be not blasphemed. As I looked at this today and wanted to come up with something to talk about, these qualities were given to the ladies that were supporters of ministers. And you say, well, now I'm not a supporter of a minister, so to not be. No, we are all ministers. All of us have a responsibility. All of us have things to do. And what he was trying to say is, I want you to give the support that you need to do. Now, going back to my mother again, my mother was a wife of a preacher. Oh, by the way, you all know that Maxwell don't have a chance to be anything else but a preacher, right? If you stay after church when he is here, he will come up front. As he comes up front, he'll take the microphone, and I got him on video last week and sent back to my sister, and she said, oh my goodness. He never saw his great papa preach, but now I tell you what, he gets up there and he gets with it, and because there's preachers on both sides 2 generations back. Okay? So we need to pray for God to send him a wonderful woman about 30 years from now. No, I'm saying all that is that my mother was at an ordination service one time, and an ordination service is all about, the ordaining of the minister. And as they were doing that, my mom went back and sat by the wife of the gentleman being ordained. She sat down and she says, "Honey, are you ready for this?" She looked around and she thought, "Well, yeah, it's him, it's not me." She said, "Oh, no, it's not." She said, "Are you ready to pray for him at times that you can't go with him and when he's in revival and doing things? Will you always have your shirt ironed and fixed and everything all taken care of?" She said, "Are you ready to really support him and do what you really need to do?" And I think it was a wake-up call for her to think, well, this is all about him. No, it's not, folks. It is that we are in this thing together, and each person do the things that is most important for them, whatever that is, and God will let you know what that is. But the main part about it all in support is that Jesus Christ is the center and the purpose of everything that we try to get accomplished.
Amen.
And as he told these women, and as he looked at them, he said, "This is one of the first things that I want you to do, is I want you to be a lady that becomes holiness." Mary could be a perfect example, and I know I preached on her, but I will mention it as well, that she looked at everything that she did the same as Jesus did, that her purpose in life was to do the will of God. And the way that we truly can know the will of God is to allow Him to come into our hearts and the inbred sin pulled out, and then we become a holy person that God can use us for His glory, because we have the same intention that Jesus had, and Jesus came for one purpose, and that was to do the will of the Father.
Amen.
And as women and ladies work through life, the greatest asset you can ever have, no matter what position you have, is to have a holiness of heart. Start it off with the fact that I want to please Jesus first, and I will guarantee you, if you want to please Jesus first above anything else in your life, you will please your spouse and your co-workers. That's a guarantee. I believe it with all my heart. Because if you do mess up on that, then you realize you mess up on it, and the first thing you'll want to do is correct it. It's all about that heart. And as I say that this is a pointless message, and to the point that this is what it's truly all about, and everything else that I'm going to speak of this morning surrounds that. And he was telling the older ladies, I want you to be a person that is holy. Why do I need for you to be holy? Is because I'm going to ask you to teach, and what I'm going to ask you to teach are things that come from a holy heart. And I am so thankful to know that Jesus makes a way that it is possible to live that way. And better than to just live that way, you can die that way. And when you die that way, our Lord will be waiting for us on the other side. It's not all about what we do, it's about who we are. And if the heart is right, then we are in wonderful shape to be able to do that. But as the aged women, that he looked at them and says, this is what I want your behavior to be. I want your behavior to be holy. Now, I didn't say that. It's right here,
Yes.
and it's right up there, where it was earlier. Why? Because if you're holy, You will not give a false answer to anybody about anything. Your behavior will be right. You will not accuse someone of something else. And all of us sometimes down the line that the devil will try to bring it up to you and try to give you something and say, blame it on somebody else. Children. Children. Most of us, as we were raising children, and something come up and somebody did something wrong and we asked them what it'd be, the first thing they would say, it wasn't me. Wasn't me. Isn't that true? Because they haven't found what it's like to have a holy heart at that point. They're still trying to get out of something. A lot of other people will do that. But what we are not to do is to accuse someone falsely. I remember that happened to my dad. As ministers, a lot of times the wrong thing comes out and somebody don't like what they do, so they try to destroy them. So the best way they can destroy them is to say something wrong about them. And what it does is it makes the person that they have said something wrong about have to prove that that didn't happen. Y'all with me still this morning? Because someone didn't have this. Yeah, I could tell you her name, but I won't. You'd never know, but I'm not going to do it because she might, her family might pull it up on YouTube sometime. But I will tell you this, that when you don't follow God, you hurt other people. Because if you don't watch, you're wanting to do something, and He's saying, whatever you do, teach them to not be, or for yourself to not be a false accuser. And as you do that, you will help other people. Be sober. Have your faculties about you at all times, is what He is telling us here. And teacher of nothing but good things. Bad habits are mighty hard to break. And if you teach good habits, they're easy to follow. And a habit, I understand that if you do the same thing at least 3 times over again, it becomes a habit. So may I say, pray, teach, and work at least 3 times close together so that it will become a habit. But these are the things that he was talking about, the aged women. I want you to teach the younger women these type of things. You've got to be this way first before you can teach people what that they can be.
Yes.
One of my greatest assets that the Lord allowed me to have was when I taught school. And this was a habit. I wanted to make sure I knew the subject before I ever give it out to someone else. When I was teaching school, I had an opportunity that the school system, which I thought was a wonderful, wonderful idea, they came up with that we want to teach every teacher how to do CPR just in case some of the kids, somewhere along the line, they are there that the teacher can actually do that CPR. When the opportunity came up, they wanted 2 people from each school to participate with that, and the biology teacher came into the lounge the same time that I was there, and he looked at me and he says, "Pelfrey, let's do that." I thought, okay, I think I will. I know the old-fashioned CPR to today because I learned it. I learned how to do it, and then I did it over and over and over and over again because I was teaching someone else how to do it. Now, ladies, what it's saying here, the older women learn what to do and do it over and over and over again, and it's easy to teach somebody else. Y'all with me still this morning? You never know when someone is paying attention to what you're doing. And we teach many times without ever saying a word. How do we do this? We do it by living a holy life. Not something that we try to do ourselves. It is something we are actually trying, not just trying, we are living out our life for Jesus. So what does it say to do? Teach the younger women likewise to be discreet. I looked that up and it was pretty neat to see what all the thing it is. In other words, you don't have to put it out there saying, this is who I am, this is what I am. I am who I am because of the grace of God, and I live it every day. Okay? Chaste means pure. Keepers at home means that I make sure that as my responsibility, I'm not the one put this in here, okay? And may I stop and say that I appreciate what the home responsibilities are today. You know why I can appreciate that? I can't do as good as Beverly did, but I do a lot of them. However, she does the washing anymore. Very little of the laundry do I have to do. She does that. But those things are so important. Back to my mama. Those things are so important to do. Those things are needed in our lives and to do. And the keepers at home is saying, I'm taking care of that. Obedient to their husbands. And as we studied this about 3 weeks ago on Wednesday night. Does people remember what we studied on that? Yes. This is what God set up. There has to be one head because two heads can never work. And the Bible talks about that. The two heads can never be to work. But the support of the woman helping the head of the house to make decisions and work it makes it smooth to go along the way. But then the man's responsibility that I'll be speaking of about 3 weeks from now is greater than what the woman has because his responsibility is make sure that she is taken care of. And many people down through the years have used that as enslaving their wife or saying that you have to do this, you have to do that. It is a partnership from the beginning to the end, and God has set it up that way, and when it works the way it's supposed to, it works very smoothly. Amen. But when you change that and try to take it out, Brother Black was our district superintendent for 25 years, I guess, something like that. How many people remember Reverend Black? Big, tall guy, deep voice. He doesn't move around like I do. It's all pretty well a little bit quieter than that. He tells of a story that he went back to try to find some of his ancestry, which was actually in Lawrence County, Kentucky. And he went back to find that. And when he went there, he come up to this gentleman's house that was supposed to be at the cemetery he wanted to go to was on this guy's place. So he come up to there, and the old guy come out, and he asked him. He said, is there a cemetery up there on the hill? And he thought, well, yeah. He said, well, who? Can I ask you if certain people are buried back there? He didn't know. So he called for his wife. And this is the way, and Brother Black would laugh about this forever. This guy turned around and said, woman, is so-and-so buried back on the hill? And he laughed about that. But the guy was degrading his wife in doing that. And we know in the history that that has happened. And a lot of people have put that in the place saying that the woman is supposed to be servant to the husband. No, that is not the way subservient. That's not the way it's meant. God puts it together the way He meant to put it together. And when you're doing it in the heart of holiness, it works.
Amen.
And it works smoothly. And no one is degraded. No one is put down in a little lesser position as many people have tried to do. May I say, folks, I am doing this and saying this, that God puts women on a pedestal.
Amen.
And He set it up that way, and He loved them from the beginning. Jesus loved right straight all the way through His mother, even to the time it was coming down. When He was on the cross, He looked at John and said, "Take care of my mama."
Amen.
So may I say that, and He tells us these instructions that I want you to do, I want you to do it so that you do not disappoint or berate my calling for your life. One chance in a lifetime that Beverly and I had a chance to meet. We lived 2 worlds apart. And if you've heard this story, just bear with me a little bit. I was in a total different denomination. I lived in Falmouth, Kentucky, and she lived in Webbville, Kentucky. And those are about 140 miles apart. But one chance, one time, one opportunity. I was back home. My parents didn't live that far from Beverly. My sister had a little group that they sang in a little community church. They asked that they had set up a singing convention, and they asked me to come and sing, or not sing, for me to come and preach at this singing that they were. It made no sense to me, because if it's a singing, why are you bringing a preacher in there? And I was in a revival as something else, but I'd already promised my sister that I would attend that. So I pull out of the revival, and I go to this little church. Not in the same denomination I was, nothing at all in any part of that. But singing in a group that night was better. She walked up in front after another little girl to pick her up, and I saw her, and I went, wow. I did. I went, wow. And then I saw her pick up the little girl, and I thought, uh-oh. She's already married. So I forgot about it. Until after the service was over, and one of my sister's best friends came and got me. She says, I've got two young ladies I want you to meet. And Beverly was one of them. To make a long story short, one chance in a lifetime. We both agree that there is no way, other than God, that we could have ever been together. Okay? But God knows everything. Everything about us, who we are, what our future is. He knows everything. And that little time, that one time that I met this lovely lady, has been a spouse of mine now for 37 years. 38. Oops. We've already passed that 38 mark. Yeah, some ups and downs all through that, yes. But I could not have done the things I've done if it hadn't been for that lady and her desire to serve the Lord as well. I'm sort of glad she's not here today, because I wanted to do this, and she would get after me as we were driving away. God created us all equal. He created us with different positions. He created man, and then He created woman from man, and gave us the second best thing we men could ever have. You notice I said the second best? Salvation in Jesus Christ is our first. Our second is the ladies in our lives. And may I salute you ladies and lift you up in prayer as God deals with you every day as you deal, that you will be a woman, a lady of holiness. Let us stand. Brother Horn, will you dismiss us in prayer?
Our Father, we pray for give our house to that word, and then for the Lord, as we do, we thank you for each lady. And we know that they are precious and nice that. And we pray that you would be with each of them, Lord, and have them. We pray you have them to be. Again, Lord, we pray you stir each of their hearts, vice versa to be, to be, like you.